Access Fort Wayne offers reflections of our community. Production facilities provided by Access Fort Wayne are a service of the Allen County Public Library. The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting organizations. For more information about creating your own television program with Access Fort Wayne, call 421-1250.
Hello, welcome to our show, The American Veteran. I'm Dale Parrish, your host, Carl Fowler is co-host. Our guest today is Art Sovocool, a Marine veteran, fought in Vietnam, put in 14 months, earned the Purple Heart. Not that he wanted it, but he earned it. Welcome to our show, Art.
Thank you.
Yeah, and when did you go into the service?
In February 1968.
68. And you went to Vietnam soon after your training?
Not right after my basic. My brother was already in Vietnam in 68, so they would not allow two of us to go in at the same time.
Yeah.
I went on a Mediterranean cruise for 6 months after basic, and then I went to Vietnam in December 1968.
Yeah. And what was your job in the Marines in Vietnam?
When I originally went to Vietnam, I was a lance corporal, and they put me as a fire team leader in charge of 3 men. And as I worked my way through up to corporal 3 months later, then I was a squad leader in Vietnam, and I had been in Vietnam probably 6-7 months when all of the sergeants in my platoon were killed or had rotated out, so I ended up being the platoon sergeant as a corporal in July of 1969, and then back in probably November, December of 69, I went back to being a squad leader because we finally got a sergeant assigned to the platoon.
Yeah.
So I was mainly in charge of men.
Yeah. What weapon did you carry?
I carried an M16 rifle.
Yeah, okay.
Along with claymore mines and ammo for M60. We carried quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Did you travel by helicopter quite often, or?
No, most of ours was by foot. I mean, we did go by helicopter. You know, if you got wounded, you got the helicopter rides back to the rear. That was fun, you know, catch out of the bush. But mainly helicopters were used for going from like the rice paddies up into the jungle if your unit was transferred and and the Marine Corps didn't use helicopters as much as the Army did.
Oh. Mm-hmm. What was the reason for that?
The first cav was all airborne Army.
Oh, that's okay. Okay.
You could tell when the first cav was moving because all you seen was a sky full of helicopters.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps, we got to use the helicopters, and we used the Chinook helicopter on Operation Oklahoma Hills, where we flew in from Hill 55 over an area to what was known as Elephant Valley, and we unloaded in the Elephant Valley. We were in the tall elephant grass, so they couldn't set the choppers all the way down, so we had to embark from the back of the helicopter. That's why we went on Chinooks, and then we went up into the hills.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, the only other time we basically used a helicopter was to come back in out of the hills back towards Da Nang.
Yeah. You said you, what do I say, disembarked from the back of the helicopter? Is
Right.
that by rope or?
No, they have a gate.
Okay, all the way down.
Yeah, but we were still about 6 foot off the ground when we, full combat gear when you jumped
That's
out the back
enough
of that.
to jar you, isn't it?
Oh yeah, we had a few guys break their legs when they jumped
Oh,
out.
yeah. What they do, just put them back on the helicopter and,
Put them back on the helicopter, send them back to First Med.
yeah, yeah. And when did you get hurt then, wounded?
I got wounded 3 different times over there. I got wounded 4 times, but one of them was friendly fire from a stupid move that was pulled. But I got wounded in May of 1969. I got wounded again in October of 69, and then I had where I got a stupid wound from an accidental discharge from one of our men in December of 69. And then in 1970, when I was medevaced out in March, I had tripped a landmine.
So they just patched you up and put you back in the service, huh?
Every time you got wounded, we were depending on what your wounds were as to how long you were out of service, but they would put you back out, as soon as they could get you back out in the field, because they had a shortage of NCOs and at that time I was an NCO, being a corporal.
Sure.
Right, okay.
So they were trying to get you back out there as fast as they could.
Yeah.
Once you get back out there, then you have real soft duty, right? I mean, you just sit around.
No, there was no soft duty in Vietnam.
That's why I said tongue in cheek.
Soft duty.
Right back on the line, right?
Right. I mean, when I got wounded in the wrist, when I took shrapnel there, I was out for maybe 3 days, and then I was back out in the bush. And then when I got hit in the back, I was out for a little over a week, and then I was right back out there. The only time that I was out for any extended period of time was when I got malaria, and then I was out on the USS Hope for 2 weeks, and then they put me back out into it.
Yeah. Does malaria still bother you?
I get reoccurrences of it, and it's probably once every 2 or 3 years.
Do you?
It's not something that really bothers. It's just I'm out of action for 2 or 3 days when it reoccurs.
Yeah.
Medication takes care of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you hit a lot of villages when you was there?
When we were in Ashaw Valley in 1969, from January through March, we would be out on day patrols, and almost every day you would walk through 1, maybe 2 villages. And then, it just, for 90 days there, we seen a lot of little small villages but then when we went on Operation Oklahoma Hills, we were up in the hills, and the only thing you seen there was bunkers or where they had dug their way into the hillside and had hospitals inside the hill and storage places.
Yeah. Did you go into any of those?
Oh yeah, after our tunnel rats went in there, and if the ones of us at that time that were small enough to go through the tunnels, we went in and did what we had to and came back out.
Did you blow them?
We ended up blowing a lot of tunnels up on Oklahoma Hills.
Okay.
We had a tunnel right on our show a while back. Yeah.
Davy Jones.
Yep. And not for me. Not for me.
Yeah, quite an experience. So your duty over there was advanced fire base, more or less? Go out from a fixed base, or?
Actually, when we were in Ashaw Valley, we were on a somewhat fixed base on Hill 55, and we would run patrols off of that every day and every night.
Yeah.
When we were on Operation Oklahoma Hills, there was no fixed base. We just started walking and walked over to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and I mean,
You just made a big sweep then. Huh?
we were basically on search and destroy.
Mm-hmm.
How many men?
Very dangerous.
Or was it?
It was a company that started out at 200 and some people, and when we got off Operation Oklahoma Hills, there was only 87 of us left.
Wow.
Walking right into it all the time, aren't you?
On a daily basis. I mean, you would be walking down the trail, and the guy that was on point was always the one that was going to take the blunt of it. And almost every day we'd lose either a point man or one of our flank men, because they had covered themselves up so bad, or so good that you couldn't see them.
Yeah, ambush.
Yeah.
Yep.
They'd probably let the lead man through, wouldn't they? Till the rest of you got up to
They would.
where they wanted you.
They would normally let the lead man through, but if he spotted their little sniper hole or something, then we would end up into a firefight before we actually got into where they were.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. These villages, did you have to destroy a lot of them because of the Viet Cong, or?
No, we only, as far as I can remember, we may have destroyed 2 of them, but it depended on what was happening, because we would walk into a village and search it, and if we come up with nothing, there was nothing to, bother the people with.
Sure.
But our problem was we were taking fire from the backside when we'd leave the village, and then you'd have to turn around and go back and find what you had missed on the first sweep through.
Yeah.
But then there would be villages you would be coming up on, and if you had a point squad that knew what they were doing, they could detect and see the enemy running through the village, and then they could back off and let the company commander, because we most usually moved as a company or a platoon, depending on what the mission was that day, and we could back off and either call in air support or artillery support, something so that we weren't taking as much gunfire as what we would be if we had gone up there to fire at them.
Yeah.
Sure, so that was a situation where you knew where they was at, you knew the coordinates,
Right.
and everything this way.
And most of the time we would just call in the Marine Corps jets, because they would come in at treetop level and...
Obliterate.
Yep.
Right.
A lot of napalm.
They'd use a lot of napalm, especially when if we were right on the edge of a grove, like a banana grove or something like that, or if we were on the edge of the mountains where you were starting to run into the triple canopy, then they would come in with napalm and burn it out so that, you had better fields of fire if you had to have.
Yeah.
Now the villages over there, was they thatched huts, or were they wood or tin, or?
Everything, unless you were in Da Nang or down in Saigon, everything outside of that was all thatched.
Okay.
Mostly rice paddies around the villages, or?
Yes, a lot of rice paddies around the villages.
That's how they lived, I suppose.
Right.
which means open ground, right?
Totally open ground. Well, you would have rice paddies, and then on the back side of them rice paddies, you would have banana groves, or you'd have, as I say, triple canopy going into it. And the village would be back towards the banana groves where they were getting some of the shade so that they weren't out there in the heat all the time, or they were in the triple canopy right at the edge. So during monsoon season, their houses didn't, or their little thatched houses wouldn't get washed away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that's a tough position to go against.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
You know, around here the mosquitoes drive you crazy. Is it the same way there? It looks like a
Over there,
ideal place.
over there, if you were in a stabilized area where you were going to be in a hut or something, you would use a mosquito net. But again, we were not in that situation except for maybe 2 times that I can remember as to where you had the capability of using the mosquito net.
Well, you was in the field.
Yeah, we was in the field 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's where you got malaria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to Korea, they give us something on ship we had to take every day for malaria, in case, to prevent malaria. I don't remember what it was.
They gave us 2 different kinds of medication. One was a daily medication of a little small orange pill
Yeah.
for malaria, and then you had the weekly one that you would get on Sunday, which was quite a lot bigger, and it was a white one, and it was to help control malaria as much as possible. And some people it worked on, some people it didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know we had a Korean veteran come back to the outfit I was in before I went to Korea. He had malaria, and that poor guy, he really suffered. He couldn't get warm. He about froze. Just lay there and shiver.
Yeah.
When I got malaria, I had it so bad that they flew me out of the combat zone out to the ship, and they put me in a tub of ice to bring my temperature down.
Yeah.
And now when I catch, when I get the reoccurrences, I'll have 2 or 3 days where I have the shakes so bad that I can't even get out of bed hardly.
Okay, is the shakes from chills or just
That's basically from the chills and but we also have the other problem that we had in Vietnam was Agent Orange.
I was going to ask
Right.
about that. Yeah.
And Agent Orange has affected a lot of us quite drastically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've had trouble with it?
Agent Orange, yes, because it causes diabetes, it causes heart problems, it causes muscle problems, and yeah, most of us have a lot of problem with it.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, did they actually spray right where the troops were, or did they spray ahead of the troops to clear the foliage?
There's a lot of times they sprayed right over the top of us because, we were in triple canopy, and all you could hear was the planes going overhead spraying.
Couldn't even see them, huh?
You couldn't see them. It was like a midnight day down underneath all that canopy.
Mm-hmm.
So you were somewhat walking in the dark during the daytime.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And the Agent Orange was actually out there to kill the foliage so that you could get more sunlight through.
Okay.
Yeah. That killed grass too, like your elephant grass, or just your broadleaf?
Just your broadleaf.
Yeah.
And it was in 1968, 69, they used it on the DMZ in Korea too.
Yeah, I heard they did. I didn't.
After
yeah,
our time, yeah.
yeah. Well, when you came back in '70, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. And then what did you do?
Then I was stationed at Washington, D.C. And actually, I was with headquarters Marine Corps in Arlington, Virginia. But they put me over at Naval Security Station as a sergeant of the guard over there.
Okay.
So I spent the rest of my time in the Marine Corps in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Is that a 4-year tour? 4-year enlistment?
Actually, you can enlist, or back then we enlisted for 4 years, and when you got down to, if you were in combat and you got down to 14 months, you could either take an early out, or you could stay in the Corps until your actual time.
Yeah.
They gave you that option because at that time they were trying to reduce the number of personnel in the Marine Corps.
Oh.
Okay. Now, you say you was at D.C. in Arlington. That wasn't the Marine Corps barracks, was it?
Yes.
That was the Marine Corps barracks? Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've seen their silent drill
Right.
and so forth. Yes. Quite impressive.
But now, if you were at the Marine barracks and you were dispatched out every day to like Pentagon duty, or if you were on the president helicopter duty, or the White House, or in other words, it was part of 8th and I. Now, the unit I was with over on Nebraska Avenue for the Naval Security Station, we had our own barracks over there, so we didn't have to transport back over into Arlington all the time. We stayed right there on post.
Very good.
Yeah. In Vietnam, did you take a lot of prisoners? Hate to keep jumping around, but
We, as far as I remember, we only, as a company, overall, I don't think we took more than 20 prisoners.
is that right? Yeah.
But as a unit, there was quite a few prisoners, and you had ARVNs assigned with you who could talk to these guys, and then they could talk to like our S3 or S4 unit, and they would, determine what they were going to do with the prisoners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the terrain over there in Vietnam, was that basically flat, or was that mountainous also? I've had some hills, valleys. You've mentioned that.
If you were down in the Mekong Delta, it was flat. And it was flat probably for the first 30 miles from the ocean in Vietnam and most areas until you got up around Da Nang. And Da Nang Airport set right out on the outskirts of the ocean there, right where you're going to come across the ocean and then drop down onto the airport. But if you went 15 miles from the airport, you were up to the top of Hill 1192, which is at Hai Vong Pass, and that's how close the mountains started.
Okay.
So you went from sea level to 1,192 feet in a matter of 15 miles.
Right. So. Yeah.
You mentioned the Marine Corps jets. Was they carrier based or land based? Or
They had both of them because
Did they?
the Marine Corps worked so close with the Navy. A lot of theirs would come off of the carrier. Like the Marine Corps was using the F-4 and the Delta Dart 106, and the Air Force was using the F-111s, and the Navy was at that time with an AD-4.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I guess the Navy did quite a bit of bombing and strafing and so forth that way in support of you guys.
The Navy did more of their support with the air or with their wing section when we were up around Quezon, C2, Washout, the Rock Pile, things like that. Down south of that, when you're getting back towards Da Nang again, then the Navy used their guns off the ship from ship to shore.
Oh, sure.
Back in the hills part, and then the Army and the Marine Corps worked together with their artillery on the land in the rice paddies and down in the lowlands.
Mm-hmm. Well, you wasn't by yourself out there then. You had backup.
Yeah, we were, like when we were on Hill 55, we always called Viola, which was another hill that had the Army artillery on it if we needed artillery support.
yeah.
Okay. Now, when you go out on those search and destroy missions, you hunker down for the night?
Yes. A lot of times we would break down into 5 and 6 man killer teams and disperse through, like when we were up on Hill 124, the company stayed on the hill, and the platoon, like one platoon every night, would break down into the killer teams and go down into the basins and like to see where the movement was.
Okay.
And there would be times that you'd come up against the enemy, and it was your choice whether you wanted to start a firefight in the middle of the night or if you wanted to let them sneak by if you thought they could.
Mm-hmm. Depend upon their size and their ornaments and so forth, right?
Mainly their size.
Yeah.
If you had the advantage, you might start the fight. If you didn't have the advantage, you hunker down, probably.
Right, and then you make a mistake every now and then.
Sure.
We started a fight at 2 o'clock in the morning one time, and that fight ended at maybe 7 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were in constant battle.
When you come up against the enemy that way, you don't know if they have reinforcements at hand, do you?
No, especially what happens in a lot of times is if you get out there in monsoon season, you have no night backup. Okay?
Okay.
During the regular dry season and like, you have what's known as a starlight scope, and you can have somebody up on the hill with a starlight scope feeding you information as to if you got enemy coming at you.
Sure. Every little bit helps.
Yep.
What was your artillery mostly? 155s, or do you really know what they
We
was?
had 105s and 175s mainly.
75s.
The 155s, they were more like up on the rock pile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, it just depends on what they wanted to do is to fly, because to get them into a lot of these places, artillery had to be brought in by the Jolly Green Giant,
Yeah.
and that'll be a great big helicopter that's lifting that
Yeah.
stuff in.
Sure.
Heard about those, yeah. Art, we're out of time. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Art, thank you for your service. You probably had a good experience over there
Yeah.
as far as anybody is concerned.
Yeah.
Well, hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, freedom is not free, so if you see someone in uniform or see a veteran, just walk up to them, shake their hand, and say thank you for your service. Thank you, and good night.